This is the Jack Vegan from 2020 and his story is about to take a crazy turn. Right now, he's a beginner in calisthenics and is about to transition to learning statics. He's going to do one of two things at the moment. Either he's going to use these 5 best exercises to work on his tendon conditioning and get to his highest level ever in statics within a couple years, or he's going to ignore the tendon conditioning exercises and have something horrific happen to him. Don't make this mistake and use these 5 exercises. Now, with that being said, let's go over the 5 tendon strengthening and conditioning exercises that you want to be doing and this way of approaching tendon training. Let's go over it now. Okay, before I get ahead of myself and show you guys the exercises, in my last tendon conditioning exercise video where I explained all about tendons, watch that video if you want a more in-depth guide on what tendons are, etc. You guys were all asking, how often should I do this? What's the intensity? How do I fit this into my training schedule? So I'm going to answer that now because I didn't answer that in the last video. So you're going to do this every other day. Now with the tendons, you're going to do these exercises and you'll notice all these exercises are heavy and slow. That's the thing. You're going to load the tendons because you need enough load to load the tendons. If you don't load these exercises enough, you won't be training your tendons. You're only going to be training your muscle. So make sure you're using a weight that you can hold for 30 seconds, but you're just about giving out and it's a heavy enough load. A heavy enough load? Jesus Christ. 30-second holds, but it has to be difficult. You're then going to rest 1.5 minutes for every exercise, and then you're going to do that 3 times. Once that becomes easy, you can do a few things to make it harder. Of course, you can increase the weight, or you can increase the number of sets. Go from 3 to 4 to 5. Do that very incrementally. Remember, progressive overload. Do that very slowly over time as your body adapts, or you can increase the number of times you do this per week, okay? So just be smart, guys, and also use your common sense. If there's an exercise where your arms are straight and you're not used to straight arm exercises, then be even more careful in that exercise, okay? Now, with that said, let's go on to the exercises. This exercise is a heavy incline bench bicep curl. You can also do this on a preacher bench, as like a preacher curl, any kind of bench like that. You're also gonna need a dumbbell. So I only have 1 dumbbell here, but of course you could do this with 2, and I'll try and input some clips of me doing this in the gym, and this did help my shoulder tendon and my bicep tendon repair when I had a shoulder injury. So I'll show you exactly how I perform it. So obviously, if you're doing this at the gym, you'd use a preacher bench or an incline bench. Okay, you would lean back so you're inclined. I'm gonna do this at the chair. This is how I do it at home. Don't have it close, have it up and out in front of you. I'm bringing it out in front of me here. And again, inclined on the bench is much easier than on this chair. And that's it, that's pretty much all. And you'll be able to feel that. And because that tendon connects the muscle to the bone, the stronger you contract that muscle, the more you're going to really stretch and cause stress to that tendon and promote the healing and the building and the strengthening of that tendon. So this one is a great one. So by bringing that shoulder out in front of you like this, rather than having it at the side like this, you're going to be hitting both the distal and proximal part of the biceps tendon. Now the next exercise, a lot of you will know, is just a straight arm dumbbell hold. I do it with my legs bent. I'm not too worried about so much core engagement, but if you want to, you can do that. I want to have force going down. So I'm actually pushing into the floor with my feet because I'm going to be using really heavy weight when I do this. So when I do that, I want to have a bit of leg drive. In the bench press, a lot of people will use leg drive where they push into the floor like this, okay, but their feet aren't actually sliding. You're going to do the same. So when you have the heavy weight, you're going to push into the floor. You can see how the mat is spreading, and you're going to try and keep your butt down while you do it, okay? And that's how you're going to able to lift more weight and hold more weight for longer. And I hold for the 30 seconds, providing that leg drive and the correct core activation. Or you could do eccentrics. You can press up and drop really slow. The isometrics are really good if you're trying to work on an injury or you're just working on your tendon conditioning in general. If you want it to be a little bit more dynamic and work on a little bit more strength, maybe specific to a specific skill, then you can do some of the eccentrics, but make sure they're heavy enough to actually be conditioning your tendons if that's what you're trying to do. That straight arm dumbbell isometric exercise is going to be really good if you're learning a lot of wide straight arm skills, just straight arm skills in general. Before I forget, another really good conditioning exercise for the tendons that is going to straighten out your arms, similar to the straight arm dumbbell hold, is just doing a supinated planche technique. Now this next exercise is going to hit an area a lot of people, especially calisthenics athletes, are neglecting, and that's their rotator cuff. You can get a lot of rotator cuff injuries, especially if you're doing freestyle calisthenics and a lot of different types of calisthenics that are very dynamic and heavy on the rotator cuff. So we're going to be working that posterior chain behind the shoulder there. That's where we're going to be hitting a lot of those tendons. And I forgot I needed one piece of equipment for this exercise. One sec. Okay, you're gonna need a resistance band for this one. This band is from Gore Nation. You can check it out with the link in my bio. There's a load of calisthenics equipment if you do need it. Pull outwards like this and really hold and activate that posterior chain, okay? Also, while you do this, you're gonna think about tilting your shoulder blades. Actually, I have a glass of water right here. So you're gonna imagine tilting your shoulder blades like this, okay? Like you're tilting the glass over your shoulder. That's literally what I think of when I do this. So I'm gonna tilt my shoulder blades like I'm tilting that glass over my shoulder, like this, and it brings my chest up, okay? That's just gonna stabilize the scapula a little bit, and you're gonna hold for the 30 seconds. Remember, this is a voluntary muscle contraction that you're trying to do an 8 out of 10 contraction. So you're contracting really hard for the 30 seconds, that it should be a struggle to talk that you're contracting that hard, okay? That's a great one to add to the end of your pool days, and it will help you get less injuries in the long run. Another tendon conditioning exercise for that proximal bicep head and for the shoulders as well is gonna be this exercise here. It's sort of like a lateral raise, but we're gonna do it a little differently. I almost forgot to show this one. So you're gonna grab the weight and like a lateral raise, you go out to the side. Instead, we're gonna do the same thing we did before with our scapula. We're gonna imagine tilting a glass of water behind us. So instead of being here, we're gonna tilt, open out the chest and tilt our shoulder blades backwards like this, okay? So we're gonna do that. That's how we're gonna set the scapula, and then we're gonna raise. This is a bit hard to do it with the mic in the hand, but I'm gonna try. And then we're gonna raise like this, okay? So not directly out to the side, not directly out in front, about 45 degrees out. In any case, you're gonna try and hold like this. By tilting the scapula like that, you're gonna make sure that you're not raising with your traps. The worst thing you can do is just start raising with your traps here, like this, okay? And the final tendon strengthening and conditioning exercise for calisthenics is ulnar and radial deviation, because a lot of the time we're using parallettes and we're literally doing this motion to balance in handstands, to do planche, you know, whatever it is, we're usually doing this motion. Of course, if you're doing floor, you probably want to do it in this motion and this motion, you know, flexion and extension. But for those of us that use a lot of parallettes, that don't do a lot of conditioning, because usually if someone's doing handstands in the hands, they're usually stretching a lot, but not really for parallettes. So let's do some strengthening for the wrist for those situations where we're using a lot of parallettes and where we're planching. So this is literally what I do to condition my forearms and my wrist for planche. So for the radial deviation, I'm just gonna pull up like this. Sometimes if I'm at the gym, I'll use a box, but if I'm at home, I'll just do it like this. I'll find a position where I can load it quite well. Okay, here's gonna be comfortable. Again, I'm using a dumbbell with one side removed, so we can make it harder just by, you know, decreasing the amount of leverage I have, and this is quite hard, okay? I feel that across the forearm and into the wrist, okay? So I'm just gonna hold that for time, for the 30 seconds again, just same thing. I could also do slow eccentrics, okay? If maybe I have a weak point, so maybe if you test this out and you have a weak point and it suddenly drops a little bit faster, you work on that with the eccentrics and try and load that specific area and slow that down, okay? Now, for the ulnar deviation, this one is a little bit more awkward. I'll try and keep my knuckles in a nice straight line like this, pull up, make sure that everything's just staying straight. I have a good grip, okay? And then I'll just hold that for time. And then a lot of the time for a forearm pump and in my warm-ups, I'll raise like this. Those are two really good methods, and I can already feel that in my forearms. That I use to condition the wrist, okay? That is just really a small portion of the things you can do to condition some of the smaller tendons. There's a lot of structures in the wrist and for the thumb. So if you want me to make a full calisthenics tendon conditioning guide for the wrist, so you can solve all your wrist and thumb issues for planche, handstands, and all the rest, let me know down in the comments if you found this valuable. I'll make this same video, but specifically for the wrist and forearms, okay? Because that's gonna help you out with those wrist thumb injuries, okay? So let me know down in the comments. Also, guys, I know some of you will want some tricep conditioning exercises.
you know, I would just do a push down sort of thing and hold that. Also guys, let me know if you like the style of this type of video, if it was more creative, if you like this kind of thing, and if it was aesthetic. Okay, that's it from me. Click this video to watch next, and yeah, let me know if you want that wrist conditioning guide.